Thank you for checking out Real Talk Personal Finance. Shit's about to get real. Cash Flow King with you today. And today in episode 32, we have a very special guest that we're going to welcome in just a couple of minutes. Today's episode is called Money Personality Discussion. Before we get into today's episode and before we welcome our new guest, I want to do a couple of quick shout outs here. We are now up to our 22nd country of Sri Lanka. So thank you to those tuning in from Sri Lanka. And also wanted to give a shout out to the UK, who recently overtook South Africa in terms of listenership. So thank you again to all of our listeners, and especially to those that are moving up on the rankings here. Before we get into today's show, I did receive some feedback for those that listened to the last episode in episode 31 on 15% promissory notes, damn good or dog shit. We had somebody write into the show, and I wanted to read their feedback here, which I really appreciate. And anybody that wants to email the show, again, the email address is realtalkpersonalfinance@gmail.com. Again, that's realtalkpersonalfinance@gmail.com. This person sent in some feedback from their iPad, so love that. And it says the following. It says, if you are going to become a bank for a company, you should get certified profit and loss statements and certified financial statements just like a bank would to verify profitability of the business you're loaning money to. If they can't or won't provide, it's, my favorite word, dog shit, sent from my iPad. So thank you very much for reaching out to the show. And, I thought a lot about that when that email came in, and I thought to myself, you know what? This person is right. And for those that didn't listen to the last episode, go back and check out episode 31. For those of you that did listen to it, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where we talked about promissory notes and essentially lending money, becoming the lender, becoming the bank. And they made a really good point. And so at least at the present time, we're recording this on Friday, December 2nd, 2022. As of right now, I will not be investing in these 15% promissory notes. The verdict is in, at least right now, unless they can provide some of the documentation that was suggested, which I think was really, really good. And we are going to go ahead and call it dog shit. So, spoiler alert for those that did not listen to episode 31, we're going with dog shit. But check it out if you haven't. Let us know. Feel free to email the show, give us your feedback, and we'll go from there. Without further ado, today, again, episode 32, the money personality discussion. I have with me a friend of mine who is also a financial advisor, and we were talking, and I invited him to come on the show. He actually majored in psychology and economics, and we talk a lot in the industry about behavioral finance and how psychology and emotions and things like that can affect our outlook, our decisions, our behaviors. We see this not only in ourselves, but in clients. And today we're going to have a conversation about it. Today's show is not going to be about how much do you have to put in to max out your Roth IRA and should you consider Roth conversions. We're going to get rid of the hardcore stuff and get into some touchy-feely shit today. And I would like to welcome to the show for the very first time, please welcome our newest guest, Cold Brew.
Thank you. Thank you, Cash Flow King. It's an honor and it's a pleasure to be here. And congratulations as well, entering into the 22nd, having 22 countries join in.
Thank you very much. Yes, we are very proud of the show, and I think when I go back and I look at the ratings and the listenership, it seems like the shows that we have guests on receive the highest listenership. I think the listeners in general like those shows the best. I know I like those shows the best when I go back and listen to them when I'm editing them, just because I get tired of listening to just myself, and I think there's a lot of value in having multiple different perspectives. So we started the show beginning of the year. We're coming into December. By the way, hopefully everybody had a happy Thanksgiving and is getting ready to celebrate a wonderful holiday season here in December of 2022. And again, thanks for coming on to the show. I'm really excited to get into our money personality discussion. And truth be told, when I sort of approached you about coming onto the show, I got to give you kudos because you pretty much came up with the outline for today and some things that you thought would be important for us to talk about. So this show is very much a function of Cold Brew's work and we will have a little fun and converse here on the different topics that he has set up for us for the show. And so I think I'm going to turn it over to him here in just a second. I think the first bullet point you had was just to talk a little bit about how money is influenced by your personality, or how your character might dictate your money habits, which leads into the different sort of money personality types, if you will. So I'm going to turn it over to you and take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so let's just get into it. So I studied psychology and economics in school, and just learning a lot about psychology, behavior. It's We're emotional beings, so it's involved in every decision that we make. Um, Congrats, and I'm happy for people that are rational and logical. And typically, it's said that there are some people that are logical, but honestly, a lot of our decisions, we use our emotions, and then we that kind of spills a little bit over into how we even handle finances. So of course, a lot of it's gonna change as far as through education, like our upbringing, maybe different circumstances, life stress and situations that we kind of go through. But I honestly enjoy when I come across and I talk with people that have different types of personalities. And even when it comes to money, there's just a lot of neat, funny stories that we'll kind of talk about and get into. I actually want to be able to kind of just go over the five major personalities that's kind of involved when it comes to money. So the five common money personalities are, of course, investor, savers, and then we have debtors, shoppers, and of course, spenders. So just think about that for a second. Investor, are you an investor, saver, shopper, debtor, or you fall into the category of spending, like a spender. Now, this is not so much of one size fits all, but contrary, it could actually spill over into several of these. And based off of life situations, you may, like a pendulum, you may be in one category one moment, and then the next you may be in another or in several. It's kind of like what I learned with the Myers-Briggs test, to where you may be an extrovert, and then maybe through time, life situations, circumstances, you might kind of spill a little bit over into an introvert, or maybe be somewhere in the middle, just depending on what's going on. But I like these different types of major personalities. So let's just start, of course, with just the saver. So we know this the person that saves, right? They're very frugal. They may turn the lights off when they leave the room. I actually have a friend, a buddy, who's in Florida now, but was in New York when I met him, and he used to. All right, this is a little bit extreme, but he used to unplug his refrigerator, which I know that sounds crazy, but he used to unplug his refrigerator, because of the electricity and all of that, when he used to leave to go to work. And then, of course, he used to come back like early in the afternoon. But the saver, they're just they're conscious, they're not maybe risk tolerant. They're maybe more risk averse. So if they have a credit card, which that may be rare, but if they have a credit card, they don't tend to use it a lot. But at the same time, the saver is the opposite of, a saver is someone who just spends big. They're maybe a little bit more indifferent. They're not necessarily trying to keep up with the Joneses, but maybe they're just maybe they're is based off of emotion again. Maybe they're feeling down and they want to go out and buy something, buy a bowl of ice cream, or just maybe go buy a new car, or something like that. So the spenders, they just like to spend. There's not so much keeping up with the Joneses, maybe just a little bit more short-term satisfaction. And then, of course, the debtor. So the debtor, this person maybe trying to make a big statement, or maybe may want to keep up with the Joneses, right? So the debtor, now this person tends to maybe over leverage. They may use a lot of credit cards. They'll put a lot of things on finance, and they're not as conscious when it comes to like their spending. And of course, we know the debtor, they end up getting steeply in debt essentially. And shoot, I met a gentleman and he maxed out his credit cards and he wanted to borrow money from his 401k because he wanted to have this lavish wedding. And of course, contrary to, what I was telling him, giving him different alternatives, a lot of times people they feel the pressure of having these really extravagant weddings. So he's like, it doesn't matter. This is, he was more of the, I guess, person that was, that had the emotions up and down in the wedding. Typically, you hear it's the woman you hear of like bridezilla, but I guess he was more of the groomzilla. So, which was funny because I just remember how nitpicky he was. But yeah, I don't know where he's at today with his with his finances, but I know he wanted to go above and beyond when it comes to having like that beautiful and lavish wedding. Then of course we know the shopper, they just like spending more of that emotional like high. Essentially, they like, especially you have Black Friday, you have the holiday, which I thought it was befitting to talk about money personalities, especially during the holiday, just because everyone is kind of shopping. Hey, what do you want for Christmas? Hey, do you want this? Or people they just tend to spend more. Commercial businesses they love this time of the year, of course. So you'll see even more commercials. People they start feeling the love. They just start feeling more generous. So some in the shopper they'll have their savings, right? They may invest regularly in like their different retirement accounts and different things, but they're more on the emotional side. This person can be pulled on their heartstrings. So I'm not going to throw her under the bus, so I'm going to slightly just a toe. But my sister called me. She was talking to me the other day, and she was saying, "Hey, mom wants this, expensive purse." And I said, "How much it costs?" And I don't know, 15, 2000. I said, "That is crazy." I said, "I have a lot going on, babies, etc." I was like, "No way." And she was like, "Well, thanks for saying that. It's kind of hard because usually when mom asks me for something, it's hard for me to say no. So I can identify sometimes, and I know for some guys, maybe not a lot, it's hard to say no to, your partner, your significant other when they want something. And so I get that. So my wife, so she kind of gets mad at me and she's like, oh, all you say is no. All you say is no. So every once in a while, I'll kind of, you know, surprise her with something. And then, of course, and then lastly, there's the investor. Of course, everyone likes, hey, this investor, very fiscally responsible. They want to, they're thinking ahead. They have their spreadsheets, or nowadays with technology, they have the apps. They're keeping track of everything, and you know, they're 100% or more than 80% involved in like I'm looking at passive investments. I'm very careful. I'm reading the fine lines. Balancing between the opportunity cost, and I come across some of these people and I can identify myself a little bit as an investor to where it's like I'm focused on passive income and investments or maybe some type of residual income. I talk to some of these people and yeah, they have all their I's dotted and T's crossed. But for the most of us, again, it's not one size fit all or you're just in this bucket, but you could identify in some of these money personality types. But I'm going to add two more and kind of go into it. So Ken Honda, he wrote a book, Happy Money, and then he talks about the seven different money personality types, which I thought was pretty neat. Of course, we talked about the saver, but he actually adds an additional word. He says compulsive. So you're not just a saver, but you're a compulsive saver. So the compulsive saver, this person is just they're just saving a boatload of money. As soon as they get paid, you hear the model, right? Advisors, put away 5 to 8% of your gross pay, you know, or like Dave Ramsey says, put away 15%. But this person doesn't have a percent in mind. They pay their bills, they get paid, and they just put a boatload of money. They're just extremely frugal. They're excellent negotiators. They're constantly bargaining. Oh man, I heard my mom the other day. She was talking to someone at the store, and it was, to be honest, what was it? Like some bread or something that was supposed to be on sale. I think it was like $11 or something. But the person on the scanner, they didn't scan it, and my mom's kind of going back and forth. Hey, which is rightfully so. Of course, you want to get your full refund and stuff. But this person is definitely a bargain shopper. So if you're that person that's scared or have a fear of negotiating, you want to bring this compulsive saver along. And also, this the downside or the con to the compulsive saver is maybe they just have a fear of spending. They're not necessarily enjoying their money. Maybe this type of person, and I have a neighbor like this, I believe they're what you call maybe the millionaire next door. They live very frugal lives. They have great jobs. They just don't do much. So that's the con to the compulsive saver. You're saving, so you want to be able to enjoy the money that you make, right? And then Ken, he also talks about, so we know the spender, but he, of course, he adds compulsive spender. So we know the compulsive spender. You're just gonna just spend just to spend. Let's just say you're a sneaker fanatic, shoes fanatic, or even watch fanatic, and you have enough shoes or watches or maybe cars, and you're just buying it just to buy it. Oh, the new version of the iPhone. Sorry if I'm stepping on some toes, but hey, the new iPhone model just came out. Oh, what's the difference between this version versus the last? Oh, did you check out the camera feature? Now, okay, so my wife and family are Apple fanatics. Everything has to be Apple in the home.
Same.
I I like Apple, and I like Apple too, but I'm like it's okay for me. I just need it just for make phone calls, send some text message, play my app games, chess, spades. But the new model came out, so I got to buy the new phone because the camera feature is better. I'm like, what's gonna happen the year after? The camera features is gonna be better. So this person they just buy just to buy. Also, of course, like I mentioned earlier, emotional. You know, maybe they're stressed out or they're really excited. They want to treat themselves, and they're just spending. And but this person, the con for this compulsive spender is, as you hear a lot, I hear it a lot in the real estate world or just in the sales world, is buyer's remorse. After you buy something, you're thinking like, ah, should I have actually bought this? Do I need this? Now you start thinking about the decisions that you made. And then Ken, he mentions this person is kind of like they're indifferent. They're indifferent to money. They're not necessarily thinking about it as much. Life is good. Maybe they inherited wealth or they have a phenomenal job. They have way more income coming in than expenses going out. So they're not really thinking about money. They're not thinking about the future necessarily, the retirement. They're kind of just living in the moment. But again, they have a lot of money. They may put some money aside as well. And basically, this person is more about what I would say personally, like more about memories. I know this couple, and they're actually in out of the country right now, and I think they just say, "Hey, I want to create memories." So they travel at least I want to say at least 5 times a year out of the country. They're coming back here this week, and then one of the partners, they're going out to another country like a few days later. So they're not really thinking about money. It's like, hey, I just want to create memories. I just want to have a good time. I don't want to be stressed out about anything. And that person is kind of just living life. And then there's the compulsive moneymaker. And I can kind of identify a little bit into that. So this person believes, hey, I'm going to be happier the more money I make. I got to keep making money. All I'm thinking about is growing wealth, growing my real estate or investment portfolio. I had this gentleman that I met in school from Zambia, and I'm gonna try to do it, but I might butcher it. So it's from Zambia. He had this like British, accent, and he was like, "Cold brew." He's like, "My dad said to have 7 to 8 different, or 8 to 10," he said, "different assets of in your portfolio for wealth." So he was extremely like well off. He was all about networking and all of that stuff, but wealth was constantly on his mind, and compulsive moneymakers constantly thinking about more, more, more. And this person, they crave that type of success. Like, I hit $1 million, great, and I want to hit 2 million, and then I want to hit 3 million, and they just want that financial success. Then there's the saver splurger. Now, this person, of course, is a combination between saving and then spending. So this person, you're very intelligent. You make wise and good decisions when it comes to saving, putting money aside, paying all your bills, not staying up with your bills, not getting caught in deep debt, and then you'll do that for some time, and then maybe something happens. Maybe you go on vacation, or you just feel like, hey, I want to treat myself. And then you just, boom, big impulsive, like, shopping and spending out of nowhere. So that's the saver splurger. And then there's the gambler, of course. Gambler. Oof. I bring, I'm a small time gambler, $20 when I play my poker with my buddy. But this gambler, Ken talks about, is a split between the spender and the moneymaker, which I think was pretty interesting. So the gambler, of course, we know they take big risks when it comes to money, and then and once they get those financial wins, and once they're happy, if they strike gold. But if something happens, you go all in on a poker table, and you lose, your whole week is messed up. So you're kind of like up and down on the emotion totem pole. And then the worrier, of course, this person, and I know someone like this, I can think about him, but I won't throw him under the bus. So this person, you're worried. You're just constantly worried about losing money. And then, of course, even when we're thinking about the US stock market, or maybe even like geopolitically what's going on, you're constantly concerned about what's going to happen. So I get a lot of phone calls, especially now, like, hey, did you see what happened on the news today, or something like that? This person doesn't really have that much confidence in just thinking that they'll be able to be well off. As I've heard this in times past, I'll always have debt, or I'll never have enough. I'll always be working. These people tend to be a little bit deflated, but they're just constantly worried about doing this or that. I know someone, it was, we were dancing and it was hot. She was tired, and clearly, being on a dance floor, you know, you get thirsty. Yeah, she went
She needs a cold brew.
water. Exactly. That was a good one. She definitely needed a cold brew, especially because she was tired. She needed that energy, but she wanted water. And then I heard she's like, I don't want to pay for that water. It's too much. She's worried, like, granted, you need to drink water. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just get the water for you. There is a good side somewhat with the worrier, essentially, where they're, I guess, in preparation. They like to be prepared. So this type of person, I would think more of like your safety manager, like someone who knows where all of the exit signs are. Like when you go into like a room, movie theater, etc. This person is just constantly on the lookout. Those are the seven that I thought was just really, honestly, like fantastic. I love it. So when I'll sit with people, cash flow king, I'll sit with people, and really what I'll do is I'll just listen to a person. I do more listening, believe it or not, than talking. And I'm able to decipher like their personality just by listening to them. In school, I had to take a test. I believe it was for abnormal psychology, and our final exam was literally watching, I think it was like 4 or 5 different videos, and you're just listening to them talk, and then we had to diagnose them, going along with the diagnostic manual, like the criteria that they had. So I'll incorporate that similar practice when I sit with people. I'll just listen to them and then able to kind of see which money personality that they have, and then I'll be able to kind of better guide them when it comes to planning, making decisions, different things like that.
Believe it or not, this is probably the quietest I've ever been on one of my own episodes. I think the listeners that have been listening to the show for a while would agree. So I guess I'm able to practice that a little bit, which, by the way, just a quick aside before I get going here, I am drinking, just for the record, in spirit of today's show and your code name. I do have a Starbucks vanilla cream cold brew right here next to the laptop. So just want to let you know that.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I guess I got to practice that a little bit, and listening to you was really good. But I'll be honest, for me, that was kind of hard. And I thought to myself, man, I need to learn to listen more. And one of the things they say, especially about financial advisors, is the good ones ask really good questions and then they listen. So I'm listening to this, and part of the reason I was so quiet is I'm thinking to myself, man, maybe I should have been on the final. Like, do a video of me and then just diagnose me, because almost, not quite, but almost everything that you said, and the listeners might be thinking this too, I was able to, in some way, shape, or form, relate to. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that sounds like me, but that also sounds like me, and that also sounds like me. You know, like, for example, the saver, what you started off with, and you mentioned about the lights, and I thought to myself, well, when I woke up this morning and came out to the kitchen, the lights on the Christmas tree were still on, probably because we just forgot to turn them off in the living room. But then when I go over to the Keurig to make coffee in the morning, the way our ceiling is, we have two different light switches that switch on two different sets of lights on either side of the kitchen. And most people would go up to the wall and flick both of the switches on and all the lights come on. What do I do most of the time? I only turn on the side that is right over where the coffee maker is so I can see what I'm doing. And I've never really thought about that before, but it was just kind of weird, you know. And I could go down the list and we can talk, you know, a little bit about it and go back and forth, I guess, on the different personality types. But yeah, I mean, pretty much everything you said, I'm like, well, I could see myself with this. I could see myself with that. And it's almost like, I don't know, probably one of those like torture movies or something where like somebody's just like laying on a table and they have like their, I call it starfish, right? Your arms are up, your legs are out, you're just kind of chilling there, but you have like cuffs on your ankles and your wrists and maybe even your head, and it's just slowly pulling in different directions. And I feel like if you looked at, that's kind of how I felt listening, was just like, okay, I'm just laying there and all these different money personality types are just tugging at all of us in different directions at the same time. And I guess the $1 billion question is like, as an individual, as an investor, as a person, how do you deal with that?
Hmm. It's, I mean, I wouldn't say again, it's not like one size fit all, but I think dealing with the different money personality types, you alluded to it, just asking questions, like honing down on why they're doing that. I read some books, I listen to some different podcasts or like, you know, those motivational conversations, and a lot of times they always ask that the why, or like if you start a business or even you apply for a job, why. And I believe once you can pinpoint your why, that's kind of like your blueprint and platform that you can kind of be able to build from. I know for me, like I identify myself initially, I was the spender just because I didn't have that much understanding. Like this was when I was really, really young in high school. Of course, I got my paycheck and I would just blow it all. I thought, you know, why not?
Yep,
and
same.
until I got into a car accident and I couldn't, and of course I had to pay for my car. It was totaled. It was a wreck, and I didn't have the money. And then that was just a hard lesson for me from there. And it was good. I think my parents were trying to teach me a lesson. That's what I believe. And at the same time, I was kind of rebellious. But they could have paid for it, but they allowed me to go through that hardship and situation so that I can become a little bit more fiscally responsible. But definitely knowing the why, and then start talking about, I'll start asking different like investment or just financial goals. Like, what do you want in life? At least just, it doesn't have to just be monetary, just overall. Like, what do you want in life? You know, even when it comes to being happy. And I think from there, once we can do that, we can better assess and make, good decisions. And then you could kind of move a little bit into making better decisions when it comes to finances. I don't believe in shame spending, by the way. I hear some people and they get into the shaming spending. I mean, hey, spend money however you want to, as long as you're content. I tell people that, and my friends, like, whatever you're doing, if you're content, then by all means live your life, because everyone's life's not going to be the same. But if you're not content, and then we need to drill down the why, we need to drill down certain things, and then try to move and make better decisions.
Yeah. There is a book out there, I think it's called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by this guy T. Harv Eker that I've read years and years ago, and it kind of stuck with
Mm.
me as we're talking about this because he talks a lot in that book about money blueprints and just thinking about your essentially your background and where you came from. A lot of the things we're talking about today, like how you were raised and just what people around you as you're growing up, what their outlook might be like or look like when it comes to money. And I remember when I read that book, part of the reason that, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but part of the reason that I do what I do as an advisor, and I think this is common for a lot of us, is that I don't come from money, and I saw what certain decisions and quote unquote mistakes, what that could look like and how that plays out. And I wanted to do better, to be better, and to help others do better and be better. And so I kind of got involved with financial services. But anyway, I remember reading the book, and as I was going through, he was talking about like driving through a certain neighborhood and his Mercedes, and a really kind of a poor neighborhood, and just the reactions that he would get. And some people would almost give like a nod of respect and acknowledgement, and other people, I think one time he had like his Mercedes symbol on the front of his hood got like taken off or like bashed in with a bat or something like that. And just how
Wow.
different people react to different signs of, not necessarily that Mercedes is a sign of affluence, but generally speaking, they're fairly expensive vehicles. And I just remember thinking to myself when I read that, like, if I saw a Mercedes as a kid, what was my reaction? And my when I think back to that, I think my reaction at the time was, "Oh, those are rich people, must be nice." And then I remember when I was in college, I don't know why or where, but I just remember being on like one of those Greyhound buses, and I was traveling somewhere. I think I was studying business. I remember having my textbooks with me. And every time like I saw on the other side of the road there like a BMW or something that was passing going in the opposite direction, I thought, hell yeah, good for you. I'm going to be like that someday. And it was more of an aspirational thing. And I think that as time goes on, not just with your money personality type, or I guess this is all somewhat related, but as you go through life and you're around different people and you expose your mind to different things and you start to gain a different perspective, your outlook completely changes. There's some people that say, well, I'm not really much of a sports guy, but so and so makes X million dollars, or they signed a contract for Y million dollars. Can you believe that? And some people are like, that's disgusting. That's ridiculous. And other people are like, man, that's awesome. Like, you must have to, be quite the athlete to be able to achieve that level. And people have different perspectives, I guess, at different points in life. And so how I felt then versus how I felt a little bit later in life versus how I feel now, that has changed over time as I think I've grown and people grow and develop as individuals, and your perspective changes based on who you surround yourself with, right? As you get a little bit older, you have the ability to choose your friends a little bit more. You have the ability to decide what you want to do a little bit more, versus when you're a lot younger, maybe you're not driving, maybe you don't feel like you have as much of a choice, and just by definition you're around generally close family, maybe some friends that just happen to be neighbors or whatever. And I feel like that really does, for better or worse, shape people's perspectives. And that can certainly change over time. Really interesting book. And once you start thinking about it differently, then, I think things change over time. And I can say that now I don't look at things the same way as I did back then.
Yeah, that's really good. And you were talking about sports. The first person that came into my mind was Shaquille O'Neal. I remember him talking about a story about how he just entered into the NBA league, and he spent $1 million in 10 minutes. And he got a call from, I think, his banker, finance guy, and he said, if you keep this up, you're gonna go broke. And I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that typically for some athletes, typically 5 years after they retire, they usually end up filing for bankruptcy. And of course, I think one person that comes to mind, and I'm sure people can mention tons, and I know he bounced back a little, and he's bounced back. Shaq, of course, definitely is very savvy, but I think of Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson accumulated, I think, somewhere around close to like 400 million in his lifetime, and his his habits that he had, his money personality basically caused him to basically splurge, end up filing for bankruptcy, just giving it all up. And I just thought of Mike Tyson, which was interesting. But a person that pops into my mind, because I'm thinking of the different celebrities and their money personality types. A lot of people, or some people, are familiar with Warren Buffett, big time investor. And what's interesting, of course, he's one of the richest people in the world. He's a billionaire. I would ask, what do you think his money personality would be?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I guess there's nobody else on the call. Or is that a rhetorical question to the listeners? Hey, Cash Flow King, drinks more of that cold brew, buddy. You're falling asleep. No, I guess I would naturally gravitate towards the investor category, but I have a feeling you're going to say that that might be partially true, but you feel differently, right?
Yeah, definitely. He's one of the greatest investors. So he's an investor, but he's a saver. He's a saver. Warren Buffett, billionaire. He lives in his same residence in Nebraska that he bought for a little over $31,000 in 1958. Still lives there. You know, it's about 6,500 square feet, and with all of the money that this guy had, you think he would be in this big, lavish mansion. Again, of course, his personality type too as well. Well, you would think he would have like maybe personal chef cooking all of these five-star meals. No, he likes McDonald's. He likes for breakfast. He likes, getting those $3 bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches and like those, and he likes Coke. I
Yeah.
watched it. I watched an interview with Warren Buffett a long time ago, and the lady, she commented on his drink. She's like, I see you, you're in your 80s, you're drinking a cherry Coke, and so she's like, I gotta ask you, what's the key to? I think she said longevity, and he's like, happiness. Just enjoy what you do. I believe he wakes up and he enjoys what he does, and but he's more on the saving side, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then we have George Clooney. He had this $1 billion tequila company that he recently sold, and I thought that was pretty neat. He makes some nice, moves in investing when it comes to his money and stuff. But yeah,
You know, the whole Coke thing was funny. I was going to crack a joke and say if I ate McDonald's all the time and drank cherry Cokes, there's no way that I would live to be that old. But I guess you can. If you're happy and you laugh more, then I guess that's my excuse to be able to eat and drink more and be merry. So especially in the spirit of the holiday season here. But all right, cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that there's an exercise. I remember doing this a couple years back at a goals retreat, and I'm sure it's been done many times, where they talk about like looking at your life and the different categories of your life as though it was a wheel, and you had to rate. I think it was on a scale of like 1 to 9 or something like that, or maybe it was 1 to 10, like how you felt you were doing in each area or category of your life, and then you had to connect the different points and basically draw a circle around those points in the form of a wheel. And they essentially were saying, how well rounded is your life? Even if you're a bunch of fives, it's still pretty well rounded, versus if you have a bunch of ones and twos and then you have a bunch of eights and nines, then your wheel's going to be kind of wonky. And I think you could make the same parallel, or almost the same analogy with money personalities. Because like I said, when I go through these and listening to these and looking at this, I can put myself into pretty much every single category. Like if you start with the first five that you said, saver, spender, shopper, debtor, investor, I can look at that and say, okay, well, first and foremost, I would consider myself an investor. And one of the ways that I invest is through real estate. And in order to do that, I take on debt. So technically, you could call me a debtor. But at the same time, to get money to save up for a down payment, to become an investor and take on the debt, I had to be a saver. So then that puts me in the saver category. And oh, by the way, when I became a millionaire, I bought myself a very nice watch, so I guess that makes me possibly a spender, and I'm still going to buy Christmas gifts for people, so I guess that makes me a shopper at the same time, right? And you can go down the list and be like, I'm all of these
Absolutely.
things, right? Like there's no one
Absolutely.
thing, but I think, the point, if I'm on track here, correct me if I'm wrong, is that even though that can be true, if you're one extreme versus another extreme, that's where that wheel kind of falls off balance. And you can be multiple things within reason, and you might have one or two that are slightly more. Like I would argue, I'm probably more of a saver and investor than I am a spender and a shopper, but there's still some sort of a balance there, right? I mean, and as long as you can have some sense of fulfillment and joy, and to your point about longevity, happiness, things like that, then I don't know that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I agree, 100%. I think it's just understanding which type or types, like plural, that you are, just using that as a springboard so that you can now, like, whether you're talking about finances with your partner, advisor, banker, or family and friends, you'll know how to approach whether it comes to investing or saving or spending. I feel like I need to say this just because it's around the holiday season, because I typically know that a lot of people tend to be a little bit more stressed, but it's okay to say no for whatever is being asked of you to do or a place to go or to spend. It's okay, to say no, but definitely just using that as like your first step approach.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot. We talked about the five main types. You added a couple in there with Ken Honda and his work. I really like the saver splurger. I definitely can see myself in that category too. Like I said, I feel like I can see myself in all these categories, and I'm sure the listeners are probably thinking something similar to that. We took a look at, some celebrities and their money personality types. Is there anything that as we kind of come to the end here, is there anything that we didn't cover, or any final tips or tricks or thoughts that you want to share with the listeners today?
The only thing that I can think of is be happy, don't stress. Just make sure you have your ducks lined up in a row, and let the water roll off of the ducks' backs, especially now during this time of the year. But yeah, that's kind of like the mantra I kind of abide by.
Love it. By the way, every time I talk to Cold Brew, say to myself, man, I wish I could be as upbeat and energetic as he is sometimes. It's always a joy. So I don't think he's just saying that for the episode today. I really do think he believes that, and he lives that. So that's awesome. Really quick for the listeners, Cold Brew, when you first gave me your code name, I was like, what the hell? Like coffee? So tell us how you came up with the name. Because when we had Cube Crusher on here way back in the day, he's been on a couple times, and people were like, what the hell is a Cube Crusher? And so I had to explain that. So how did you come up with the name Cold Brew?
Cold brew is very easy. So I have twins in my life recently. They're a few months old, and I drink way more coffee than normal. So when I was thinking of a code name, only thing that can pop up in my mind as I'm drinking coffee is, I might as well have named myself Cold Brew. I enjoy a good cold brew. Not every now and then, pretty much every day, hot and cold. Now today I did have hot this morning. It is a little bit chilly, but at the same time, yeah, that's where the name came from.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, like I said, I am enjoying my Starbucks vanilla cream cold brew on ice here as we're doing the episode. Thank you very much, Cold Brew, for coming on to the show. Thank you to the listeners for checking us out, and share it with a friend, family member, coworker, whomever you think might benefit from the show. Just a quick reminder for anybody that wants to email the show, you should have it in your show notes on your podcast player, but just in case it's not coming up when you click on it, the email to the show, if you have questions, comments, concerns, feedback, show ideas, whatever the case might be, is realtalkpersonalfinance@gmail.com. Again, that's realtalkpersonalfinance@gmail.com. Don't forget, we are an affiliate of both Buzzsprout. So if you want to start your own podcast and you use the link in the show notes, you will receive a $20 Amazon e-gift card after your second paid month of your new podcast, if you wanted to launch a podcast with that link. Also, we are an Instacart affiliate. So if you don't feel like going out to the grocery store, store around the holidays, or maybe you did and you forgot something and you don't feel like going back out and dealing with the crowds, feel free to check out the link in the show notes for Instacart. You can get your first delivery free with your order of $35 or more. Thanks so much for supporting the show. Thanks for checking us out. That's a wrap today on episode 32, Money Personality Discussion. We will see you in the next episode.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.